Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul show here on New Zealand Sports Radio. Yes, coming to you on Monday at 8 p.m. every single week. And we talk about all the hot topics in rugby. And joining me this evening so far, I have Ashwin and Stephen. Ashwin, how are you doing, sir?
Oh, doing all right, mate. Doing all right. Yep. Sort of been a while since I've been having a bit of rugby chat. So, and 2 days in a row. So awesome.
Yes, it is. Yeah, you've been in a lot of cricket, and we'll see you back on
Thursday.
On Thursday at 8 p.m, folks, if you're into your cricket. Also, I've got Stephen Harris and two people in the green room. So, Stephen, how are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. Sounds like we've got a full-on team and guys on the bench this evening. Maybe one of us should drop off.
We'll see how it all goes. Hello, Cornflake. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I found the right button and I've made it in the nick of time. Again.
Slightly late, but hey, who cares? And now these are all regulars who you will probably recognise from the from what used to be DrivingMaul and it now is New Zealand Sports Radio. But the next gentleman I'm going to bring on screen is our special guest, and he actually knows how to play the game, which is kind of handy. I always find. Dwayne, how are you doing, sir?
Hey, evening, men. Good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, very good, thank you. Very good. So Dwayne obviously is the Samoan international, plays at scrum half, which means he basically touches the ball a lot and doesn't involve tackling as much as does avoids tackling if he can. So everyone, hi everyone who is joining the live chat. Do throw in any questions you have for us during the evening. We're going to go through looking at the Super Rugby law changes. We'll also Stephen Harris wants to know, should we have finals for Super Rugby Aotearoa? Okay, was that good, bad, indifferent? I don't know. I'm trying, guys.
Well, that's all right. We've talked about training tomorrow on tech. We can talk about training on pronunciation tomorrow as well.
Yeah, we can. We'll also talk about private investments in rugby, especially with the All Blacks jersey being up for grabs. But first, let's bring up with some key news items. So in the news this week, Patrick Tuipulotu has re-signed through to the next Rugby World Cup. I don't know if the part of the deal was he had to have pink fluffy hair or not. We'll have to. We'll try and find out those details later, as whether that was actually in the contract. The Landers and the Blues win at home in front of large crowds, and Super Rugby AU kicks off on the 3rd of July, and they have a whole host of law changes which we will be discussing as well. So let's get straight into our topics then. Dwayne, as someone who kind of plays recently under the old laws, what did you think of the new law variations that they had put into Super Rugby over the weekend?
I thought it was very exciting to watch. It was great to see the ball move quite a bit, and it probably suited the Blues. And some would say, the tempo was quite high. You see Burden Barrett just kicking to the corners very quickly, so it suited the Blues, and I think it'll expose a lot of teams as well, and who probably did some fitness during the lockdown. So I think it's good for the game, and it was entertaining as well.
Yeah. So as you say, yeah. So you think there's going to be okay. So fitness is going to be a big one. Obviously, Burden Barrett scorched his Bronco test. So clearly, the Blues in a good place there for that kind of things. The other guys and I talked about this last time we actually sort of reviewed the show, but we'll just remind people quickly what these law variations are. We have the golden point, which means if it's drawn at the end of full time, they'll go into a 10-minute extra time and golden point to win the game. We didn't see that at the weekend. A red card, a player gets replaced after 20 minutes. We didn't see that at the weekend either. So the only real ones we saw were the key focus points, which actually meant that Ashwin, we didn't actually see any new laws at all, did we? We just saw interpretations of the laws changes, which was basically around that breakdown and people having to basically not being allowed to crawl and having to get out of the way.
Well, that's it. You know, the commentators keep going on about the new laws, but it's just that there aren't. I mean, we didn't see any of the new laws actually enacted on the weekend. We didn't see the red card and the 20-minute sort of substitution palaver, and we didn't see extra time. So all they were actually doing was actually applying the laws as are actually in existence, which we've sort of, you know, my hobby horse for the last couple of years is the fact is that we just want to see the referees actually applying the laws, and then the players will have finally learned that and adjust.
Stephen Cornflake, you obviously love counting your cards and keeping a tally of cards.
That's why they don't let them in at the casino.
Just have to wear this to remind everyone about the success of the weekend's action with the yellow cap. But yeah, no cards. I mean, the Highlanders tried their best, didn't they, to get that red card rule into action. So yeah, I think we're going to see probably a bit more of that. But I think at least the referees were a bit consistent about how they ruled most things with the focus areas of it, and both teams certainly can't complain, I don't think, about how the games went. But I'm sure we're going to see a red card or 5 or 6 or 20 by the time the season's out. And I'll be sure to be counting them every single week on the previews. So make sure you come check that out to keep count. But yeah, I mean, that we've seen that a lot in the last couple of seasons, haven't we? The cards have certainly mounted up as the rules have changed, I guess, and developed and been tweaked and focused on certain areas and certain things. So I'm sure we're going to see more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Stephen, okay, I'm going to throw you over to you now. You brought this one in here as a suggested topic. Finals. What's that all about then?
I have, but just before I do, I've actually got to ask Dwayne a question. And good evening, Dwayne. And it's really just in and around when a game is being played and you're being heavily penalised by a referee. There could be the trainer thought, man, this guy's got it in for you. But you go away and talk your player. What do you actually say to your players, Dwayne, when you are getting penalised at breakdown all the time? Do you pull your players aside and talk to them about it? Or do you sort of more think to yourself, well, it's just something we've got to eliminate ourselves?
Well, I think most of the time it's taking the ref out of the game. And, discipline's probably the biggest thing that you could probably put your finger on, especially as a captain, is just to keep a cool head, especially during that phase where I think the Hurricanes were under pressure a few times, and probably didn't help as well where you had TJ sort of chirping at the referee, and he was told a few times to chill a little bit or just he didn't want to speak to him. So you push the boundaries, and then obviously when referees get sick of it, then you just got to change or somewhat and should probably change the way you play, and discipline's probably the biggest thing. I noticed I think at the end it was about a 31 count in terms of penalties, and a lot of other teams will probably see that, like Crusaders, probably watching and just understanding that they need to make sure their discipline's in check come the next few weeks. So yeah, probably just keeping a cool head. That's probably the biggest thing.
And just with those breakdowns, they obviously say sometimes a penalty is either a millisecond or a second, but really at the end of the day, it's sometimes just the cleaners being maybe half a step late to clean out. Is that what it pretty much comes down to at the end of the day?
It as well. It looked like they were pinging a lot of things, like I heard the north-south sort of rule. It was more just getting east-west. Just trying to get out of that ruck. And TJ played it well a few times. You could see he was milking it somewhat. But that's what you do. You got to know the rule book, and he probably knows it better than most referees, I'd say.
That's what halfbacks do, Dwayne?
Oh, you got to push the boundaries. You only cheat until you get caught. That's what they say. So I thought he played it really well.
Sorry, guys.
But yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, sorry to take it in a different direction, Paul. But yeah, just getting onto the question you originally asked me about the competition. I looked at those great crowds yesterday, and if Super Rugby Aotearoa, Paul, keeps getting these sort of crowds along, I think it's really important to actually maybe capitalise on something special. And if there is a final, if there's the opportunity to have the top 2 teams in the final, why not jump on board of it? Because I'm just maybe a little bit scared as well. One team might end up dominating, and the competition's as good as done with maybe 2 or 3 rounds to go. I know it's pretty much a sprint, but I just think it's also a great opportunity for New Zealand rugby to capitalise on this, because I think we're in for some exciting rugby, and to have a final or even a Sunday afternoon final, I just reckon it would be superb. Just my thoughts anyway.
Steady on there, Steve. It's just like we've only won 1 game, It's just like we haven't run away with it yet. But no, I have to agree with you. It does feel strange in this modern times of having a competition where there's not going to be a final series. I don't know if it's wrong or right. It just feels strange.
I was thinking they might have to get that extra stand put into Forsyth Bar just to, accommodate for the extra people in the final.
Well, Stephen was suggesting actually a neutral venue for the final, and I was going to throw it back to him and say, okay, where was he thinking of hosting this final? Was he thinking Palmerston North or taking it to the region somewhere?
What Steve said, Forsyth Bar.
Rugby Park's free, I think, and no one's down there.
Well, I reckon anywhere, anywhere that the 2 teams that are in the final, maybe say for example, if it's the Crusaders and the Chiefs, have it at Eden Park, you'd want a big venue, or vice versa. If it was the Blues Crusaders, have it in Wellington. I think it'd be a great little boost for the economy, for the economy, I should say, but also a great opportunity for people to travel around. I'm just putting it out there, really.
Obvious. I'm all as Simon says, it works fine in the Premier League, and that's obviously football. Look, I'm not I actually like the traditional nature of having just a league table, and the person who wins the most games in the league wins the league, right? Rather than it coming down to from a player's point of view, Dwayne, do you guys do you guys sort of get more excited towards finals time? And do you like finals, or do you prefer seeing that? Look, have a knockout cup if you want a final, have a league if you want a league. How do the players see it?
It's always exciting times, That's why you play footy, is to get to those moments. To try.
Sorry, press the wrong button. There we go.
You're right. No, you're right. No. So I guess every players, looking towards winning finals footy or being in the playoffs, and what better way to do it than a league of its own. And as the men sort of said, it's a sprint right now. So every game's exciting, especially in New Zealand, and probably for club rugby as well. So, it's exciting times. Just to see rugby back, and just the style it was played, a full crowd. Showed the world that it was possible, and New Zealand just took center stage and world stage actually, and there was a lot of viewers. So no, I think it's the beauty about rugby is playing finals footy, and I think if you're playing rugby for that, then might as well just stick to playing club, enjoying sociable playing and just enjoying it with your mates.
Okay, yeah, all right. Then finals footy is what it's all about. Actually, on that note, obviously you've started training already for the Auckland club competition that kicks off next weekend. Is it a full league, and are they having playoffs and finals in that for the club competition, or is it a shortened season and a short and less games this time around?
I think from a quick glance, I think Stephen might have more info, but I think it's quite a hard and fast sort of tournament, and I think if you lose early, your chances of winning the tournament will be pretty slim. But Stephen will probably know more info. I'm still waiting for a release from my club in the US to play, so I haven't really. I've been training with the boys, but just enjoying helping the young boys out, and there's so much talent here in Auckland. It's crazy. So,
Stephen, do you know? Are you on mute, by the way, Stephen? So, do you want to undo your mute and give us an update?
That helps. Well, the Auckland club competition starts this weekend Te Papapa Marist, Eden Grammar Tech, Waitemata, Papatoetoe. That's where I'll be, just up the road here, or Tahu Pakuranga. And that game is at Sturgis Park Suburbs, Manukau, East Tamaki, and College Rifles and Ponsonby play University. I know Ponsonby had an internal game on the weekend, caught up with Tani Fuga, and he said they've actually been getting some really, really good numbers. A lot of, as Dwayne previously said, there's a lot of guys that have come back from overseas. And we're not just talking about guys who play in the really big professional competitions, but we also got guys that are playing in the, I think maybe, they call it the P2, Professional 2 competition in France as well. So, and of course, all the guys who played MRL, so a lot of guys back there. So by the look of it, this looks like it's almost it looks like it's a normal draw. How long it runs for, though, hard to say. I'll have to decipher this Auckland Club Rugby printout. I got to say, it's confusing at the best of times.
I must say, I do find club rugby difficult, confusing in New Zealand, because you have a first round of games, don't you? Then you split the table into the top 8 go and play each other, and the bottom 8 go and play each other, and then you end up with finals. Yeah, it's not easy to follow. So, but it's good to see club footy back next weekend as well.
I think you'll find that's just an Auckland club rugby structure, though, isn't it? It's not across New Zealand that all the provinces have a convoluted system like the Auckland club rugby system.
Oh no, Waikato does too. Waikato has has season part A and season part B, and you don't know what season part B is going to be until the last game of season part A. And it's just on that note, so Dwayne, obviously you mentioned there you're having to you're still waiting on your release from your club over in Major League Rugby. Have you been chatting to any other players from overseas, and are they finding it easy or hard to get releases?
No, actually, it's just a matter of right now in the MLR they're going for a draft system, first of its kind. So I know a lot of the directors of rugby, are quite busy selecting their players. So I spoke to our director of rugby, and he's just been pretty busy at the moment, but he's going to get that release all sorted, I think, and it takes a couple of days. But talking to other players, as Stephen said, the club competition is going to be pretty exciting. There's a lot of players that are here right now, whether it be from France or even guys that are off contract. I think I saw Lolangi Vicenia, who was running around for Suburbs as well. So there's
the mighty Suburbs.
So it's going to be interesting competition, and I think it's only great that it's in New Zealand. Harder rugby, so no, it's definitely going to be an exciting tournament. Probably not just Auckland itself, it's across New Zealand. There's a lot of players across New Zealand that are back home. Japan, guys. I know there's a lot of guys seeking releases from their clubs in Japan just to get some club footy in. So competition's going to be great.
What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that the overseas clubs should release them, so that their players are getting a bit of rugby under their belt, or should they be concerned about injuries? Because that's what it is. That's what it's about, isn't it?
It is. It's a tricky one. You can't put your finger on it because I'm not an owner myself, and it's almost like I'm paying this guy's wages, and if he gets injured, see you later, sort of thing. So it's a tricky one. But I guess if you want your players to come back fit and rearing to go, then you take that risk. Otherwise, he's just going to stay at home and sort of.
As a player, do you think it's better for you? Say, let's take you individually. Do you think that's for your own performance? You're better off that you carry on playing, or it doesn't hurt you if you did just sit it out?
Me personally, I'd love to play. Only because match fitness as a halfback. It's just huge. Match fitness is different to your general sort of fitness, and you can run a Bronco, or whatever at a great time, but if you don't, get the minutes under your belt, playing sort of 60, 70, 80 minutes, then it's just different. So me personally, I'd love to play. And
one thing, you can't replicate physical contact.
Oh, well, that's it. You do it at training with the pads, and it's totally different to getting a 130 kg prop running at you, full speed ahead. So half the time you're closing your eyes and hoping for the best, and whoever opens eyes first is the lucky guy. So it's me personally, I'd love to play, and just getting sort of at the end of the age of my footy career, so I'd love to give back to my club.
I think it also comes down to when are the teams expecting to play. So whereas in Major League Rugby, we know that's not going to kick off until, or we're not expecting it to kick off, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, until sort of end of February, or actually probably March next year. So there's a long time until that plays. So if you get injured, there's time for recovery. Whereas I know there was talk of the players need to be back in Japan for November, so which wouldn't give much of an off season. So that's also going to play into it, as to kind of when do you have to be back with your employers for those games, as to when they start, as well. Where should we go next with all of this then? Super Rugby crowds then. Cornflake, you're down there in the deep south. What's going to be the noise around there? Do you think you're going to get big turnouts? I mean, Highlands obviously got the win. Do you think you're going to get big turnouts for those going forwards as well?
Oh, it's tough to say. I think a winning team is always going to have that positive reaction, isn't it? So I think it's going to probably flow on, but being on the bye, obviously next week, it's going to let that a little bit die. I think a lot of the fans that go to the games down here, especially, are pretty one-eye focused. So they'll be watching the progress of their team, where they'll be watching the rest of the competition. I'd say a lot of that would just pass them by. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, the vibe is really good, but I mean, you could have put on a game of Tiddlywinks at Forsyth Bar and you would have packed their house out if it was live sport. So yeah, it's easy to get a good vibe about it, but I think you got to give credit to what the Blues and that have done with their pricings and their tickets. I noticed they've very quickly smashed on that again, and a couple of the other teams have jumped on that with discounted prices for kids and even for adults now as well to get the crowds along. So I think, they've got to jump on that. All the unions have to do that. They've all got to jump on that, encourage the crowds, make it easy, make it cheaper to go to. Just make all those allowances to allow it to happen. Don't make it difficult, because as soon as you lose that, you're not going to get it back unless we have another pandemic or something like that's going to go wrong. So you've got to keep that nicely. You've got to keep that passion, and you've got to keep everyone on top of it. So you've got to do whatever you can to keep it along. And that those promotions, just hard-hitting advertisements, everything like that, keeping their passion in the game high is what they've got to really try and focus on over the whole course of this whole competition. And the interest is there. There's no doubt about it. The interest is there. People have just found it too easy to stay at home and watch it. But I think the desperation of seeing something has brought out the best. And hopefully that can stay on for this whole competition. Would be great, ideally.
Absolutely. Ashwin, you were in at Eden Park. Was there anyone else was there a talk around the West Stand of people getting in their cars and driving down Hamilton for this weekend's game against the Chiefs?
Yes. Yes, there was. So, I mean, just to sort of cover that, I mean, just on the ticket prices. So, Blues have doubled down, and basically from what I've seen today, they're actually offering even cheaper tickets for the Highlanders. So, no offense there, Cornflake Steve, but they're sort of like your $20 tickets have actually got a 20% discount on them if you buy them by tomorrow. So if you are in the Auckland region and you're wanting to get down to that Highlanders game, I suggest you buy your tickets tomorrow so you can get a further 20% discount on it. Look, I actually started investigating going down for next week's game for the Blues Chiefs game down at Waikato Stadium, and you can get seats down there for $15. So unfortunately, I've got something that I possibly got on, so I can't go down, but. No, definitely the chat amongst the group that I go with was, hey, shall we go down for next week's game?
I think they're trying to soften the blow of a loss, is what it is.
For the Chiefs.
I mean, for the Blues for next week. Swing it whatever way you like, but,
Okay, so well,
they need to get Chiefs fans coming along. The game for 2-0.
So,
0-2.
0-2.
0-2.
Oh dear. So that's been so okay. So it's all looking good for Super Rugby Aotearoa. Now let's move on to Super Rugby AU quickly, and let's look at the law changes they have over there, because rugby administrators don't like to keep things simple. All right. One of the things we've noticed is actually a good point. Stephen Harris, Dwayne, do either of you know what laws they're actually going to play by in the Auckland Club competition? Are they going to include the new trial laws or not? And as you can tell, there are folks who are watching and haven't got a clue. For those of you on the podcast, not great audio, I know, but basically both of them don't know. So who knows what laws they'll have in that competition. Over in Rugby Australia, Super Rugby Australia, let me give you a few of the law changes they're having over there. If you get held up over the line, there's going to be no 5 metre scrum. It's going to be a dropout from underneath the posts. If you knock it dead from the in goal, there's also no 5 metre scrum. It's going to be a dropout from under the posts. If you kick it from your own, if a kick from the attacking 22 is caught in the defending 22, you're not allowed to mark it. So only kicks that originate outside the opposition 22 are allowed to be marked. The red card, we're going to have that 20 minutes get replaced. They are going to have a 50-22 rule and a 22-50 rule. So, just to confuse people, if you kick the ball from your own half, it bounces and goes out in the opposition 22, you get the put-in. If you kick it from your 22, it bounces and goes out in the opposition's half, you also get the put-in. So we'll see if that changes how things are. The one game of Global Rapid Rugby I saw, we only saw that happen once in a whole game. And then finally, they're going to have super time at the end of games. So if the game is ending in a draw, there will be two periods of 5 minutes of extra time. The first point scored wins the match. So golden points, but whereas in New Zealand it's a solid 10 minutes, in Australia it's going to be two separate halves of 5 minutes. So, boys, while you're doing, I'm going to throw this to Cornflake first, and let Dwayne actually digest what I've just said there before we pester him with with questions around this. What do you think of the Australian rules then?
NRL, if you want to put it very quickly and very sharply. The goal line dropout just screams the NRL. The 50, 22, 22, 50 screams the NRL, isn't it? I mean, can you not think of some... I know it's all well and good to think of some cool ideas and some fresh and new ideas. I mean, the Global Rapid Rugby kind of did their own sort of swing on things. That was a bit unique, with the try zone and all that sort of thing. This looks like they've kind of gone, wow, that kind of looks cool in the league, isn't it? Let's just see if we can adapt it to rugby. It's a bit strange, but you can kind of see just by the reaction of you talking about these rule changes that the players are probably going to be absolutely bamboozled as well. You're going to get guys trying to take marks and they're going to get smashed and the referee's just going to go, well, too bad, buddy. They're going to be throwing their arms up in the air. They're going to be punting the ball all over the place. You have 6 guys defending at the back trying to stop these potential, kicks that they'll probably be trying to in the first round of games. Everyone will just be thumping it from their own half or their own 22 to try and cash in on whatever they can. It could be quite entertaining. And knowing the Australians, they'll just be headless chickens running around. If it's anything like the Waratahs and things like that, they'll have no idea what's going on. And, you'll have props who drop goals. It'll be old school Australian Super Rugby again. So, could be really entertaining. Although as for cohesion and actual rugby entertainment, I'm not so sure. But, I mean, do we give them a little bit of credit for trying something new? I'm not really too sure. I agree with Ashwin, who's shaking his head quickly off the side of his screen. I just think they've just got a bit desperate here and just gone, what can we do to just do something? Let's do something. We've got to act like we're making a change.
That's it.
Be a bit smarter.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's just like, the Australian rugby is obviously in dire straits and they're just trying to make sure that they don't get out of it. Because those rules that they've implemented are just, I'm sorry, the only one word I can use, they're stupid.
That's what Arthur says when he's trying not to swear in front of his son.
Doesn't Australian rugby remind you of Sansa? It's a bit like, oh, someone said we should do something. Quick, someone make a snap decision about something we can do to respond to this. Whatever it is, just do something. It's just that knee-jerk reaction that Sanzar do terribly. With what we've seen over the competition over the last few years, it just stinks of that straight away. It's like, oh crap, New Zealand's 100%. Doing something. Someone else is doing something. Oh, we've got to do something. What do we look at? NRL. That works. Go.
But the thing is, it's really stupid because if you look at what the key thing, the biggest improvement that New Zealand rugby's done is saying to the referees, ref by the rule book, right? And that's what's going to clean up the game. That's what's going to make it a better spectacle. Is the fact is that they'll actually use the rule book and they'll administer it, for want of a term. And it's just like, that's not what Australian rugby are doing. If Australian rugby had gone down that path and said to their refs, look, rule by the letter of the law, and it's like the players will get it within a couple of games and we're going to have a fantastic free-flowing game. That's going to be great to watch. But no, they've gone and said, let's make more confusing laws. Our game has laws.
Okay, Dwayne, we've had the two boys come off the long run up there. So obviously the 2050, the 2250, the 50-22 is all about trying to create space for attacking play by pulling defenders out of that defensive line, and all this sort of things. What do you think? Do you think, as Arsenal says, they're stupid, or do you think they're actually, look, some of these laws could have unintended consequences and open up the game?
Oh, I think it's a tricky one. As Conflict Steve said, it's a bit like NRL. I give them credit for trying to get some interest into the game, and I think the situation they're in, they're trying to get bums on seats and viewers as well. So sounds like they're desperate, but I think if there's anyone that could pull it, it's probably Australia. There's just because there's so much sport that's there, and rugby's not as popular as it is here. So, yeah, a bit like what Western Force and the Global or Rapid Rugby were trying to do with the point scoring system. They got to think of something to entice viewers and the fans, and more so the young, to stay in rugby and stay competitive and somewhat enjoy it, and get back, bums on seats.
Dwayne, I got a question for you as a player. If you were playing in Australia and you got this thrown at you, I know if you're playing Super Rugby right now, it's pretty simple. Yeah, the yellow card thing and the extra time thing, it's pretty basic, straightforward. If you got all those rules thrown at you to prepare for a new season in a handful of weeks, how much of a mindset stuff up is this? Are you going into this match consciously having to think about all these different things that you have to adapt to? Does that completely take your focus off your just basic core roles as whatever position you would be playing in that competition, especially a fullback or a winger, to adapt, have so many of those rules affected to them? How does that affect your just basic game when you're thinking so much about trying to adapt to those many different rules?
Yeah, I think it'll be tricky for a few positions, probably the 10. The driver is 9 and 10, and also the fullback as well. But the rugby hasn't changed still. You still got to beat up the boys up front, and keep the game basic as possible. As much as they change the rules, you still got to play the basic game, and if it works out for some, it does, and if it doesn't, then you just got to go back to the drawing board. And I guess it's up to the coach as well what he implements, and if he's going to play towards the rule and style, then the team has to adapt to it. But I guess every team will be different, and I think at the Blues showed that they adapted to the new rules a lot better than the Hurricanes did, and they looked a bit flustered. I was just saying to my cousins that it was probably the first time I've seen the Hurricanes look like that in a wee while. They looked flustered. They probably weren't holding the ball as well as they used to do, and TJ looked flustered as well. So the experienced boys didn't play as well as the Blues did. So, yeah, I guess the quickest team to adapt is probably the team that's going to win.
And there are going to be teams that are going to, with so many different law changes, there are going to be some teams that are going to get one right and mess up others, and vice versa as well. I think, but as Cornflake said, we could be actually seeing a version of AFL played on a rectangular pitch, with the amount of kicking that's going on. So that's going to be that is definitely going to be interesting. They kick off with the Reds versus the Waratahs and the Brumbies versus the Rebels on the 3rd and 4th of July. The following weekend sees the Rebels versus the Reds and the Waratahs versus Western Force. And currently the Waratahs don't have a stadium. So it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do on the 11th of July. They haven't got a deal yet with any of the stadiums in Sydney. So hopefully they get something sorted out in the next couple of weeks.
Concord Oval.
Concord Oval again.
Rocking it old school.
Yeah. Just look, just make it a secret venue locally down the park, because they're not allowed crowds anyway. Suddenly turn up somewhere and play. Throw down a couple of jumpers, and you're sorted. Oh dear. So then, on to the last thing then, and both Ashwin and Stephen, you guys picked up on this one. $300 million for naming rights. No, don't go there, please. Stephen Harris, I'll let you kick off this one. What do you think about this idea of giving it over to a company and they can on-sell it? So we could see the jersey name change depending on which tournament the All Blacks are playing in. Well,
the first thing is the AIG sponsorship. I think that pretty much sells its course at the end of 2021. So I think it is important that they get a backer of sorts. I'm curious to know where they came up with the figure. It's obviously quite a substantial amount, but obviously maybe the same sort of figure that AIG basically had with the part of the sponsorship package. But I guess they've just got to do what they've got to do. They need money to keep the game running, these various competitions up and running, and it is what it is.
But there's one thing of, so in the previous deal was, what was it, 180?
125 over 5 years, I thought it was.
Yeah. And then it's going to be 300 for the next 5 years. I mean, that's more than doubling. That's so that is an impressive rise. But Ashwin, what are your feeling here of this one, that it's going to be?
I think it's, we were talking about innovations in Australian rugby, and to me it feels like an innovative process or solution that they seem to be coming up with. The rights are being sold to an advertising company. So as Paul's alluded to, every test series you could have a different sponsor on the shirt. Now, obviously, the advertising company will be going out to market themselves, saying, okay, who wants to put their name on the All Blacks jersey? So they obviously see the potential to resell at a profit, or as a package deal to one of their clients, the billboard space on the front of the All Blacks jersey. I think it's a great innovation if that's actually what they're going for. It's great, the All Blacks need more money, $300 million. It's actually the equivalent of all the other sponsorships that they have, including jersey sponsorship with Adidas. So I think it's a great initiative if it is what we're talking about, how we're talking about it.
And just think how quickly Ashwin can fill up that wall with all the different sponsored All Black shirts over the next probably 8 months.
I'm going to get a job to pay for the jerseys first.
Yes, so Rebel Sport, if you'd like to sponsor the show and keep us up to stock,
and fill up the rest of my wall,
it'd be much appreciated. Seriously, guys, I mean, look, surely there's the idea is that you have loyalty and emotional and attachment. The idea that somebody else could put, there'll be obviously some restrictions around it, but having Ford on it for home games and then having General Motors on it for the one test match that they hold in Chicago before putting on McDonald's when they play in the end of year tests in November. Don't you think that changing that you associate it with one jersey for? Alston's just shaking his head. You don't think that can get over commercialized rather than just having you don't see a difference between that and having name
dragging,
in 2 years.
it's dragging the All Blacks, the NZRFU, kicking and screaming into the modern world, isn't it? I mean, it's all about advertising. It's all about maximising that advertising dollar, that marketing opportunity. That's all it is. I think it'd actually be quite exciting to have a different name on the front of the jersey. Yeah, for each series. It's like you have it here locally, and it's Ford, and you go to America, and you can get $10 million out of General Motors to, they can't afford it, but you get $10 million out of General Motors, and then the American government bails them out. But that's another story. And then you go to you go to the UK, and you try and promote obesity by getting McDonald's on front of your shirt, sort of thing. I think it's a great initiative, and it's sort of like as you've just put up on screen, the Huawei All Blacks. We don't want to give away our secrets, so we have to make sure that there's nobody sniffing around in all our IP, but that'll be great. And since Qantas are dropping the Wallabies, the Qantas All Blacks.
Does anyone really care
not going to have any money to be able to sponsor them soon?
Does anyone care what's on the front of a jersey anymore?
Nah,
like, is anyone complaining that BNZ isn't on the Blues jersey or things like that? It's just what's on the jersey, isn't it? What matters is the little logo there of the team that you're supporting. That's all that really matters. It doesn't matter who makes it. It doesn't matter if it's Adidas or it's Nike or whoever makes it. You're supporting the team. And if you think about it more on the other sense of things, it'll make a bit more money because you're going to have those hardcores out there that buy every single different shirt. But it's also going to make shirts a bit more of a collector's sort of thing as well, because you're going to have that shirt from that 2022 tour of Ireland and that 2023 tour of America and things like that. So you're going to have specific branded, or not branded, but specific iconic shirts with different areas, different tours, different years, that kind of has specific, rather than just saying, that's the 2018, 19, 20 All Black shirt with AIG on it. You're going to be able to narrow and pinpoint collector's items when we're sitting here and we're 80 still making these videos going on about 2025 All Blacks with KFC on the front. So who knows? Could be a collector's item. You have a shelf.
What'll be great is, like Steve just had, the Northland jersey with Hansen on the back, and you just imagine that on the All Blacks jersey, and then for the pre-game entertainment, you got Hansen with Mbop starting off. It'd be awesome.
I was about to say, if I'm still here talking to you guys when I'm 80, something has seriously gone wrong with my life.
No, don't worry, Stephen. You'll be up in your farm in Northland with absolutely zero Wi-Fi or connectivity at all. You'll be lucky to have electric up there.
I'll make sure the roadblocks are open.
Actually, Dwayne, obviously, even at club level these days, you've got your jerseys plastered with sponsors. Are you guys made aware of who the sponsors are, and are you aware of what the name on the jersey is and what they do or anything like that?
Yeah, last Friday was a jersey auction for Pakuranga as well. So they do it every year, and you're sort of aware of who sponsors your jersey. And it's always a good thing, especially for young boys, just to go and interact with sponsors and stuff like that. So just builds that connection within the club and life members and stuff like that. So I'm not sure about other clubs, but it's always special to have those sponsorships and stuff like that. It just allows us to play rugby and pay for fees or whatever. And we're trying to teach the young boys to network as much as they can and just go and say hello to the sponsors or the life members and stuff like that, because at the end of the day, you never know, you might get a free beer at the end of the game. So there's the little things that you want to try and do, but the sponsors is all part of it, and especially of grassroots rugby now, that's so important that we look after the sponsors and we still get sponsors. There's sometimes some clubs are just struggling to even field a team, so we'll even get train gears and boots and stuff like that. So it's pretty vital for club rugby at the moment.
Yeah, I was talking with I was out in Tyra at the weekend, and they're not going to be fielding a first team this season. They're only going to put out a B team this year. They have had a lot of overseas players traditionally, all over the last couple of years, and obviously that's just not available for them this season. And hence they won't be able to to get a big enough or a competitive squad out for the Premiership, unfortunately for them. But when it comes to the professional level, I mean, a lot of the sponsors will work with the clubs around giving players opportunities to get some work experience, etc., for their post playing career, and they're much more long-term agreements or relationships. I just think this putting a label on for one game or for, just isn't really what sponsors are looking for these days. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. And Ashwin, if we could sell one of your houses, please, so that we could get New Zealand Sports Radio onto the arm of an All Blacks jersey for one of their games, that'd be nice.
Worth a try.
If I sell one of my houses, I have to give the money to the bank, though.
Cool. I've run through kind of the topics that we had down for this. So, Ashwin,
I've got a question. I've got a question for the group, actually. Something that popped up in the game yesterday. So this could be education for me, or I'm right. And the fact is that just before Ben Lamb's try, there was a penalty given, and the Hurricanes opted for the scrum. Now, the ball was at the back of the scrum, and Lani Lamapi actually progressed forward and was basically about 2 meters away from the back of the scrum whilst the ball was still in the back of the scrum. My understanding was that you had to remain, both sides had to remain 5 meters back from the scrum until the ball was cleared from the scrum. Dwayne, you might be in the best position to answer that.
Oh, it's a bit like a fine line. Like if you as I said, you only a cheater unless you get caught, and those are the little things that a lot of the coaches try and teach us is that buy the A line, advantage line, and try and buy it as much as you can. You beat defenders and also defenders as well. You can push the referees or the touchies, but in saying that, if the referees are refereeing it strictly, then they should have been on top of it and picked it up. Or video referees, we've got technology now to.
Okay, so we were correct, and the fact is that you can't progress past the 5 meter line until the ball's out of the scrum. Okay, sweet. Cheating Hurricanes.
In the rule book, yes, but you just got to get away with it if you can. So,
we were standing there in the West Stand screaming, "He's coming the 5 meters! He's coming the 5 meters!" Yes, and
he probably doesn't need to, advance. He's bloody rocket as it is. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely.
But I thought the Blues kept them quiet. I thought the Blues played bloody well.
I thought the actually that was a massive part of the game for the Blues, is the fact that they shut down Laumapi, and it stopped the backline, the Hurricanes backline, because you can a lot of their go forward is based off Laumapi crash balling up. And generally he makes meters, whether it's 1 meter or 2 meters, even it gets them, as you said, the A line, the advantage line, it gets them across that. But on the weekend, he was basically hitting a brick wall, and he didn't make it through that line once, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. What I loved about the Blues is they fronted physically. I think that's what's been missing in the last, I'd say a couple of games or even seasons. It's probably just real staunch defense and the want to really win that match. And, that's what I said. I haven't seen the Hurricanes play like that in a wee while. And that goes to show how great the Blues were yesterday.
Yeah, that's a good point you raise, is that, sitting in the West Stand, I mean, I got season tickets in the West Stand, so we've been there watching it painfully for many seasons. And you notice the fact is that you're yelling, the boys, get up. But this season, that's what they're doing. They're out. If they're on the ground, they're out of the game. So they're getting to their feet and getting in position much, much quicker than they have it for a long time. They're making that effort. What all the other Super Rugby sides have been doing, basically. And then you're yelling, why can't ours do that?
And I do think that you're also actually probably the one name out of that back line that wasn't talked about is the guy that's been responsible for that, which is TJ Farney. Everyone's talking about Terry Black, how good a game he had. Obviously, Bowden Barrett, the two wingers clearly had good games. Rieko Iwani, obviously the breaks and for the tries. But TJ Fayani, one of the leaders in that team, would have been the guy keeping Laumape quiet. And I think he's someone that's overlooked in that team personally. He's one of the unsung heroes for them there.
Definitely providing a rock in the back line, and I mean, just going back to that, I mean, like Cornflake Steve alluded to this yesterday in terms of year after year, the Highlanders are always sort of looked at. They'll be bottom of the log, but it's the ticker that's in the jersey. We talked about what's on the outside of the jersey. I was going to say it doesn't matter what's on the outside of the jersey; it's what's on the inside of the jersey that counts, and the coaches, because it is the coaches at the end of the day, it's the management of the team that somehow gets inside the heads of the players to get them to to lift, to play better than what they're capable of playing, to push themselves, and you've seen that, and I say quite often with the Highlanders, that's as Steve alluded to. I think it was last night you did, Steve. Is the fact is that everybody writes off the Highlanders, we all do. And it's just like, but they perform, and it's about getting up and playing for your mates next to you, playing for your the place that you come from, and all that sort of stuff, isn't it?
It's that thing of I've completely lost my complete train of thought I was going to say on that, but it's skill takes you so far, but it's the top 2 inches and the mental aspect of the game that takes you to the next level. So you can be the most skillful, amazing, talented player in the world, but if you've not got that mental side of the game right, the ability to stay kind of in the game, I guess, and not drop your head when things go wrong, which they always going to go wrong, and just keep on fighting. Like, I mean, the Highlanders in that game could have easily, when McKenzie hit that drop goal over, thought, oh, crap, we're done. It's like, how are we going to get the ball back, get way down the other end of the field again and do something ourselves? They just stayed up, fought back 2 minutes. It was more than enough, plenty enough, wasn't it? And it just shows that sort of stuff. There's an amount of skill involved, but I mean, that's top 2 inches mental all the way to the bank. And it just shows that breeds confidence as well. And confidence, that's just next level stuff then.
Well, it's quite interesting. This is like, as you alluded to again last night, it's just like they had a minute left on the clock and they went back to good old traditional Southland, going backwards, protecting the ball style rugby.
Jamie McIntosh would be proud. It was a proud moment. He would be really. How many ran Freddie Shields' defences? That's a lot. Canterbury, Auckland. You all remember the Mashman. You all remember them. You remember the good old days down here at Rugby Park.
How do you play in a mud bog? It's just like it was bog, and it was like the wind was howling. How do you get out of that bog with the wind?
With a loss. That's how you see the back on the bus with a loss. Doesn't matter. Penalties. That's all you need. That's all you need. 9-6. That's all we need. It's the job done.
Just going to come back to something Nocturnal Rights said in the old chat room, and it's just like, look. Maybe the quality of the ball that the Hurricanes forwards were giving their backs was not as good, but in end of the day, that's what they've relied on Laumape to do. Is the fact is that when their forwards haven't been providing good ball, they give it to him to take that crash ball forward to give them that momentum. So although and I didn't think the quality of the ball was that bad coming out of the forwards, but if it was, that's what they use Laumape for, is to give them go forward when their forwards aren't going forward.
Guys, I'm going to jump in here. Just my real quick one. Yeah, I am going to jump in because you two were waffling on about nothing before. I sort of look at the weekend and I always marvel at these brilliant rugby players we're able to produce. And I have 3 rookies from the weekend that I pretty much looked at and I thought, wow, who really, really impressed me. These 3 young guys. From the Highlanders game, Naitoa Akoi, I thought, was outstanding when he came on. I also thought for the Highlanders, Marino Michaeli, too, was just absolutely damaging. And my third one is Caleb Clark. Guys, out of those 3, who's your number 1 pick of the weekend?
Do you even need to ask me? I mean, it's pretty cut and dry, isn't it? Yeah. It's cut and dry. The big number 8, Michaeli, too, fantastic. He's a bulldozer, demolition machine. Amazing.
Caleb had a good game, but I'm going with number 8 from Highlanders as well.
Dwayne?
Yeah, I'd say number 8 at Highlanders. He played awesome. With the beauty about it is we've got some good ball running 8s. some talent. Hoskins at Blues as well. He couldn't go past his performance.
Absolutely. But would we call him could we call him a rookie? I suppose he's pretty much in his first full season, isn't he?
Yeah, I'd say yeah. I think he's a rookie. Yeah, I thought he was awesome. Got some, got some talent now to pick from, especially when the All Blacks do decide. That'll be interesting. So,
and Paul,
I'm going with Caleb Clark because I can say his name.
What competition did he play in? Do you remember?
Clarky.
And listen, in terms of standout performances of the weekend, you may or may not disagree with me, and we saw some wonderful moments. Obviously, the Bryn Gatlin clutch moment when he drop kicked the goal. But for me, I'm actually going to go with Otere Black. I thought in a game where he needed to show some control and continue the form that he showed early year, the pressure of having a Bowden Barrett, I just really thought he never put a foot wrong, and he kicked every goal that was on offer. Would any of you agree or disagree with me? We'll start with you, Steve.
Yeah, it would be hard to disagree, wouldn't it? I mean, how much is the pressure behind him encouraged him to actually lift his game? He was great at the start of the season without those guys behind him, but I think that's just encouraged him even more, because you do see the atmosphere, especially the All Black sort of atmosphere, where players competing. You often see of Aaron Smith and TJ Perenara, they compete for the same position, but they push each other so far, they're like best mates. Well, they probably are best mates. So you probably get that same sort of atmosphere that Barrett is going to push those guys so far to just keep at his level. It's like if you watch The Last Dance with Michael Jordan in the NBA, he just demanded the pinnacle of basketball from all his teammates. Doesn't matter if you're a number one pick in the draft or you're just picked up off a scrap pile, you were demanded that top level. And I expect that's what, not to that same sort of extent, but a player like Barrett, who is obviously a World Player of the Year, he would demand and play at that high level and drag everyone else with them as well. So I think the guy that's going to benefit the most from that would be the other guys that wear number 10, especially Black, who's been given that starting role in that position as well.
It's just been a shame for
Steve, I
Terry
didn't
Black.
realise I was going to get a novel. Ashwin,
Always a novel.
I was just going to say, it's been a shame for Terry Black because he's been in the Blues setup for about 3 years now, if not a little bit more even. It seems like ages. But he just keeps picking up injuries. And so he's never really been able to spend time in the jersey to actually get his game together. And most of those injuries have been sort of season ending or large parts of the season as well. So not only has he not had time in the jersey for the Blues, but time in for the jersey for the Turbos as well.
Okay, that was really interesting. But do you think he was probably one of the better performing players over the weekend?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I apologise profusely. No, absolutely. Look, and then using what I just said. No, look, the time in the jersey has been fantastic for him, and he's just building from strength to strength. And we've thought he was a class player, but we've never been able to see it, and I think we're starting to see that emerge.
And Dwayne, yourself, was there anybody who impressed you of the four teams that you saw on show?
Well, as you said, Otere Black was for me probably the best pick of the weekend, and it probably helps that you got a pretty classy fullback as well, who's another voice and who sees, the vision, and just feeds back, what he can see from the back as well. So it does help that you got a world class fullback, and then you had some old boys who were probably giving him so much advice, and that was a great pick of Tana and also DC, so. He's got a wealth of experience on the side, but as a young man, he definitely played his cards right. And, it's almost like he said to the coaches, don't forget about me. You got, DC who's coming in probably third, fourth string right now. Bodie, who'll slot into 10 at some stage. And then you got Perifeta, who's injured as well. So, yeah, it was a performance to say to the coaches, don't forget about me. I'm still around. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. And I hope he does really well.
Well, that's four great minds. Can we make it five? Paul, what are your thoughts?
No, of course not. I mean, look, something that helped him clearly is Bowden Barrett, but also the fact that Bowden Barrett can slip into that first receiver role and they can alternate it. So he's not having to concentrate every single play, as well as having someone to take that pressure off. He helps. I'm going to go with Dylan Hunt. 19 tackles, 1 missed. And come on, you all talk about the flash stuff on the attacking side. On the defensive side, I think he stood out for me as being, look, he got through a massive shift at the weekend. So I'm going with Dylan Hunt as player of the round.
I was going to throw someone else in there just to be a bit of a spanner in the works as well and say Ash Dixon. So you sort of stole my thunder on that one.
Hey, you
Well, you only see Dylan Hunt because he can't say
Hey, speaking of Dylan Hunt, though, is your game plan when you're coming up against someone who, and defensively, he is a great player, right? Is it someone that you run at and tie him up? Obviously, he's going to make the tackle, so you tie him up in that tackle. So that means that he's tied up now in that ruck area, and then he can go wide because he's now not available in that defensive line.
There's definitely got to be an element of that, hasn't there? I mean, it's a bit like was some of the teams would sort of run at Pocock, because if he's tackled and on the ground, he can't jackal for the ball.
Yep.
So you try and take him down with you. So there's an element of that definitely in there. And I think we saw that particularly in the Blues. I mean, there was some really good. I mean, Satutu, I think, and also Papali'i both chose their moments to get over the ball really, really well. So I think that was all very good. But I'm going to wrap things up now, boys, because we have been going for the full hour. So thank you very much, Ashwin, Stephen, and Steve, but especially to Dwayne, our special guest this week, and hopefully we'll have him back for more weeks as well. Next week, we'll have Chris Eves, the ex-Hurricanes prop and Sunwolves prop, on the show for a chat. So looking forward to having him on as well. Get someone to talk about some forward stuff rather than just all this flouncy backs that we've been hearing from you guys, and we'll actually get down to nitty gritty as to some of the real work that goes on. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening, for watching, or listening to the Driving Maul show here on New Zealand Sports Radio. Don't forget, you can listen to us on the go on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify. Just search for New Zealand Sports Radio.